So we're looking at Judges chapter 14 this morning. If you want to find that in your Bible, Judges chapter 14. While you're doing that, just those, I know quite a few of you took the Praying the Hours prayer cards last week. Here's week 2. And I'll put those right here. Make sure you pick those up. It would have been easier if they published them all at once, but they're just kind of put them online 1 week at a time. So I'll try and get Elizabeth to print those and have them here for you next week, because I'm not here next week. But we'll make sure you get them. They're very good, and they're just short little prayers for the Lenten season. And if our people will pray those prayers each day, I think God will do something in your life and in the life of our core. All right, Judges chapter 14 says this. Once Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw a Philistine woman. Then he came up and told his father and mother, I saw a Philistine woman at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, Is there not a woman among your kin or among all our people that you must go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, because she pleases me. His father and mother did not know that this was from the Lord, for he was seeking a pretext to act against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah. When he came to the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion roared at him. The Spirit of the Lord rushed on him, and he tore the lion apart barehanded, as one might tear apart a kid, meaning a baby goat, not a child. Can you tear apart a baby goat? I can't, but apparently Samson could. But on this occasion, filled with the Spirit of the Lord, he could rip apart a lion. It's quite fascinating. They should make a movie about it. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson. He was very easy to please. He didn't even know her. After a while, he returned to marry her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, which I can understand. If I'd ripped apart a lion and went back a month later, I think I might step off the road into the bushes to just see, did that thing really happen? He wants to know. And there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. He scraped it out into his hands and went on eating as he went. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the carcass of the lion. His father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, as the young men were accustomed to do. When the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. Samson said to them, Let me now put a riddle to you. If you can explain it to me within the 7 days of the feast and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 festal garments. But if you cannot explain it to me, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 festal garments. So they said to him, Ask your riddle. Let us hear it. He said to them, Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. But for 3 days they could not explain the riddle. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, Coax your husband to explain the riddle to us, or we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us? So Samson's wife wept before him, saying, You hate me. You do not really love me. You have asked a riddle of my people, but you have not explained it to me. He said to her, Look, I have not told my father or my mother. Why should I tell you? She wept before him the 7 days that their feast lasted, and because she nagged him, on the 7th day he told her. Then she explained the riddle to her people. The men of the town said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, get ready, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed on him, and he went down to Ashkelon. He killed 30 men of the town, took their spoil, and gave the festal garments to those who had explained the riddle. In hot anger, he went back to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Wow. First of all, let me point out that we cannot judge the various aspects of this story through the lens of 2019. Let me give you an example. There's been a lot in the news in recent years about the residential schools, and no doubt there were many negative aspects about life in the residential school. I went to school with kids who lived in the residential school in Sault Ste. Marie. And judged by today's standards and judged by today's way of thinking, the residential schools were a terrible evil. But if we were able to get into the mindset of Canada in 1950, we would see things differently. Because things were different. And their way of looking at this thing was different than it is today. I'm not defending the residential schools. I could have used other examples. I could have used the homes for unwed mothers that have been in the news lately. I could have used the Japanese internment camps during World War II that have been in the news lately. I'm not defending anything. I'm just saying that in order to have an intelligent conversation about something from the past, we need to truly make some attempt to understand the past. For example, some of the best Christian writers of the past sound like terrible racists to our ears today. But I can't judge those books by today's standards. I need to read those books and learn from those books what I can learn from them. Take what I can from those books, understanding that in 1885, that writer was not considered to be a racist and was not trying to be a racist, but was simply reflecting life through the lens of 1885. So what I'm saying is that some aspects of this story that I just read, in Judges chapter 14, like Samson killing 30 guys to steal their clothes and pay off a bet that he made and lost at the last second, have to be understood. These things have to be understood through the lens of the horrors that the Philistines were inflicting on Israel. And these things must be understood through the lens of Samson's God-given mission to kill Philistines and save Israel from the Philistines, save Israel from being wiped out. The question that arises here, though, is this. If Samson's mission is to kill Philistines, why does he want to marry one? And obviously, Samson is a very conflicted young man at this point. Like many inexperienced young people, Samson seems to be convinced that he knows what he's doing. And he says, she's the right one for me. And as far as that young man was concerned, that was the end of the argument. Samson's parents, they're looking at the exact same set of circumstances, but with a completely different view of it all. And they're saying to their son, don't be an idiot. She is absolutely not the right one for you. Which in the end, they were proven right, weren't they? It's the parents who are in the right here. They are people of prayer. We learned that in chapter 13. They are people who have met God face to face. We learned that in chapter 13. And so Samson's parents fully understand the nature of Samson's God-given mission, and they are fully aware of the obligation of every Israelite to be consecrated to the Lord, to be separate from the world, in order to be the chosen people, the messianic people, the people through whom our Savior Jesus will come into our world. And so Samson's parents know that it would be completely wrong for their son to marry this Philistine girl. And God, of course, agrees with the parents. But he knows the heart of Samson. He knows what Samson will do. So God plans to make use of these circumstances for his own purposes. He uses this disastrous wedding to get Samson to start fulfilling his mission. Because up until this point, Samson hasn't killed a Philistine in his life. But God says, that's your life mission, my boy, to save Israel. So we need to set this thing in its proper context. God made a perfect, beautiful world, and Adam and Eve messed that up, and they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and things were largely in decline ever since. Things got so bad that the Lord destroyed the world by a flood. And after that, things didn't improve at all. So the Lord decided on a different plan. He thought to himself, I'll save the world. And his plan didn't sound like a whole lot at the beginning, because he simply chose one man named Abraham who didn't have a clue what was happening. And he said, Abraham, you don't have any children right now, but I'm going to make you into a great nation through whom all the nations of the world will be blessed. Because through you, the Savior of the world will come. So God has a plan to save the world, and Israel is a vitally important part of the fulfillment of God's plan. Israel is the only nation maintaining a knowledge of God in the world. In a very broken world, we needed Israel to be there. Israel will write the Bible through the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Jesus. Salvation will come into the world. But at this moment, here in Judges chapter 14, Israel's continued existence is under threat under the oppressive regime of the Philistines. And this is a bad situation for Israel and for us. The Philistines are a warlike people with organized military and superior weaponry and no conscience. And Israel doesn't really stand a chance against them. But God isn't going to let anything get between him and the fulfillment of his redemptive plan. The Lord is determined to save Israel from annihilation. How will he do this? Will he raise up a huge army to defeat the Philistines? Will he send an anonymous donation so that Israel can buy some new weapons? Will he hire a general from Mesopotamia to come in and get Israel organized for war? No, that's not God's way. God chooses one man, Samson. Samson has a mission. So in order to best prepare him for this, God says that Samson is to be a lifelong Nazirite. And we've been looking at that for several weeks now. Samson can't drink wine, he can't touch dead bodies, and he can't cut his hair. Samson has a mission. So he can't touch dead bodies. That would make him unclean. He hasn't got time to be unclean. He always has to be ready to fulfill the mission that God has given him. And here in chapter 14, when Samson is at an age when he should be engaged in the fulfillment of his life's mission, we find him touching the dead body of a lion in order to scoop out some honey. Samson knows he shouldn't do this. That's why he didn't say anything to his parents about it. He knows that they would have scolded him for his foolishness, because now he's broken one of the cardinal aspects of his Nazirite vow. And this incident is meant to be a signal to the reader that Samson's spiritual life is in decline. Samson has a mission, so he can't drink wine. It's going to be best for him to be disciplined in his appetites so that he is always set apart for God's service, always alert and sober and ready to go when God says go. And here in chapter 14, when Samson's at an age when he should be beginning to fulfill his mission, we find him at the dead center of a Philistine wedding celebration, where, according to Philistine custom, the wine is flowing freely. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near this stuff. He's a Nazirite. So whether he drank the wine or not, just by being there, he has broken a second aspect of his vow. And now his spiritual life is in tatters. Samson has a mission, so he can't cut his hair. He has to be distinctive in his appearance, so that everyone knows, here comes Samson, the man with a mission from God. And in chapter 14, Samson hasn't yet cut his hair. His relationship with God is hanging precariously by this one single thread, this last remaining hint of faithfulness, this last unbroken aspect of Samson's Nazirite vow. He hasn't cut his hair. What is Samson's mission anyway? It's in chapter 13, verse 5. He will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. And now Samson has reached the age where he really should be starting to fulfill his mission. And the Lord is about to use the circumstances of this wedding to get Samson going. What a roller coaster life Samson had. 1 minute up, the next down so far, we don't see any hope for him at all. 1 minute Samson's in tune with the will of God and with the Spirit of God, and the next minute he's so far out of tune, the reader can hardly stand it. It's a disappointing life at times, but life is disappointing at times. Don't you find? Sometimes our prayers are not answered. The prayers of these parents in this story were not answered, not the way they thought. Even the prayers of Jesus weren't always answered. Did you know that? In Luke chapter 22, Jesus prays, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." But Simon Peter's faith did come to a point of failure, didn't it? In Matthew 26, Jesus prays, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." But was that cup taken from him? No, it wasn't. Jesus' life was cut short by no fault of his own, and that was pretty horrible for him. And he prayed about it. But in the end, he had the faith to say to the Father, "Yet not as I will, but as you will." Samson's riddle: out of the strong, something sweet. Out of strong discouragement and disappointment comes sweet resignation to the will of God. Right? Well, not always, eh? Strong discouragement and disappointment are going to lead some people to reject God altogether, which is very sad, because that's a hopeless case and a hopeless situation. We shouldn't lose our faith. Our faith is too precious to discard. We can be disappointed with God. We can question God. We can be angry with God, because sometimes life can be pretty awful. We live in a fallen world where all sorts of things happen that we can't explain and we can't justify, and we have an awful time accepting. What can we do in times like that except place ourselves in the hands of God? What other solution is there? Out of strong discouragement and disappointment comes sweet resignation to the will of God. Ask the person with a serious illness what that's like, to put oneself squarely in God's path. Lord, my situation is out of control. I have no other hope but you. For better or for worse, Lord, I'm in your hands. There was a Salvation Army officer named Colonel Dittmer whose son was very seriously ill, and it inspired him to write a song that says, "I shall not fear, though darkened clouds may gather round me. The God I serve is one who cares and understands. Although the storms I face would threaten to confound me, of this I am assured. I'm in his hands. But though I cannot know the way that lies before me, I still can trust and freely follow his commands. My faith is firm, since it is he who watches o'er me. Of this I'm confident. I'm in his hands. Whatever the future holds, his way is best." You see, Samson wasn't yet convinced that God's way is best. Samson had to live through the painful consequences of his bad choices before he was going to make any real spiritual progress. But through it all, God wasn't about to let Samson go. Another beautiful old song that says, "Oh, love that will not let me go. I rest my weary soul in thee. I give thee back the life I owe, that in thine ocean depths its flow may richer, fuller be. O joy that seekest me through pain. I cannot close my heart to thee. I trace the rainbow through the rain, and feel the promise is not vain, that morn shall tearless be. That's hope in the face of life's tough challenges. That's faith on our worst days. That's being confident that we have a God who knows what he's doing. Out of strong discouragement and disappointment comes sweet resignation to the will of God. And out of devastating personal tragedy came another song that says, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to know, it is well. It is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and hath shed his own blood for my soul. For me be it Christ, hence to live. If Jordan above me shall roll, no pain shall be mine. For in death, as in life, thou wilt whisper thy peace to my soul. But Lord, 'tis for thee, for thy coming we wait. The sky, not the grave, is our goal. It is well. It is well with my soul. Out of the strong, something sweet. And the Philistines answer Samson's riddle with a question: what is stronger than a lion? The answer to that is in Revelation chapter 5. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll? But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside it. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. What is stronger than a lion? Jesus, the Lion of Judah. And what else is stronger than a lion? Samson, a man with God at work in his life. And you, a Christian man or woman with God at work in your life. Don't worry about those people at work who give you a hard time. With Jesus in your life, you've got more power in your baby finger than those people will ever have. And that's something I learned as a young officer, a young Corps officer in Port Alberni, British Columbia. There were some people there in that Corps that were not very nice and were kind of scary. And one Sunday morning after the meeting, Mrs. Redlin had had enough of it. And she backed me up against the wall and she pinned me against the wall. And she said, Lieutenant, don't you know that you've got more power in your baby finger than those people will ever have? And, well, that changed my approach to being a Salvation Army officer right there in that second. And that's the situation for any of us when the all-powerful Lord of creation is at work in our lives. Out of the strong, something sweet. And the Philistines answer Samson's riddle by asking, what is sweeter than honey? And the answer to that is in Psalm 19, where it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The decrees of the Lord are firm, and all of them are righteous. They are more precious than gold, than much pure gold. They are sweeter than honey from the honeycomb. What is sweeter than honey? Apparently the will of God is sweeter. Bitter at the time, maybe. The bitterness of discouragement and disappointment and disease and maybe even death. But in the end, the sweetness of life in God's presence. Out of the strong, something sweet. What does God say to his discouraged people over and over again? Don't be afraid. Take heart. Be of good courage. Be strong in the grace of the Lord. Let's find the strength we need to keep moving forward as we make our prayer today. We're going to sing, Purify My Heart. My heart's one desire is to be holy. Samson's we're going to get him to that point. We are going to get him to that point where his one desire is to be holy. He's not there yet. Come back for a couple more weeks, we'll get him there. But that needs to be our desire. Purify my heart.